Welcome to my fence repair project. Notice the rubble and the missing sections of fence. And where that little box is in the middle of your screen, there should be another post. This is my seedy backyard. And here's that part of the fence that's still standing. What keeps the fence and the backyard from sliding downward into a flood channel that's just below the chain link fence you see in the lower right is a stone and concrete retaining wall that runs under the fence and beneath this slab right here. These pipes are poking out of that retaining wall.
In order to illustrate how my retaining wall was built, let's say we're looking from the hillside toward where the lawn is now, kind of like this point of view here. First, a bunch of mid-sized boulders pulled out of the hillside during construction are piled in a row against the dirt. Then the posts are set down amid the rocks. Once the posts are braced up plumb, concrete is poured atop and in between the rocks and around the posts. When the concrete's cured, you have a stout retaining wall and a good foundation for your fence. But these old wooden posts don't last forever. Even though they're redwood, they'll eventually start to rot, and pretty soon they're rotted all the way up to the top of the concrete. Then a good stiff wind comes along and they snap right off. Now your fence has fallen over. How do you fix it? Well, for years I struggled and eventually found a way to replace each post as it rotted, the results of which you can see here. But it was far from easy. Just knocking out the concrete wasn't enough. I had to knock out the adjacent rocks as well, and let me tell you, some of them were pretty good-sized boulders, like this one here. Next, I had to build a three-sided form against the dirt to keep the concrete around the post. These varied in size, but each one was over 1 foot wide and 2 feet deep. Once you set the post and pour the concrete, you wind up with something really solid. But the downside is you've weakened the structure of the retaining wall. Granted, you can put the rocks back and pour more concrete like I did to this last post, but it's all a huge pain in the butt. So this last time around, with half the fence down and 3 posts rotted away, I managed to come up with a better repair idea. Stop breaking up the old concrete wall at all. Simply replace your rotted posts with fence pipes, right in the same old hole. Great, but somebody has to clean out the rotted wood. To do that, you need an old chisel or a cold chisel, a flat bar and a hammer, and maybe even a wrecking bar. And you've got to be willing to scar up your knuckles. Gloves get in the way. Keep at it, and pretty soon you'll have a 3.5 inch by 2 foot hole that'll leave a little over a 1/2 inch for concrete on either side. My pipes are only 7 foot long, 1 foot shorter than the posts, so I don't set them all the way to the bottom of the hole, and I don't want them all the way to the top of the fence line either. Instead, I drop them down to within 6 inches below the fence line and keep them there by filling the bottom of the hole with rocks. Then I build a little form whose square dimension is 3 times the width of the pipe. That's the rule of thumb. 3 times 2.5 is 7.5. I round it up to 8 inches. And I set the form at 5 foot 6 inches from the top of the pipe so that the remaining 1 foot 6 inches of the pipe is encased in concrete. Last of all, I finish the form by extending it down to the top of the old hole. Stake it firmly into place and brace the pipe in a plumb position. But hold it. How do you attach a brace to a pipe? You can't drive a drywall screw into it, but with a neat wooden collar you can. The collar is made of 2-inch strips of 3/4 ply, cut to fit tight around the pipe. Clamp the 3-sided piece to the pipe and screw on the 4th. Behold, a wooden collar that's tight enough to hold the pipe plumb for as long as you need. So now you can brace the pipe into position. First along the fence line with a board from a nearby post. Then to hold it the other way, you've got to brace it from down the hill like you see here. When it comes time to pour the concrete, use a thin stick to tamp it down alongside the pipe all the way to the bottom. Continue to fill and tamp the sides to the top of the hole. Then fill up the form and top it off. In a couple of days, pull off the form using a hammer and a flat bar and a screw gun. and you will see a solid concrete pier, just like this one. When you buy the pipes, buy the brackets too. These tighten to the pipe with a socket wrench or a big Phillips, and the 2-bys go on the flat. Put the top bracket 1 foot down from the fence line, and the bottom bracket 4 feet down from there. Cut redwood 2x4s to fit between the posts and screw them through the brackets. Finally, stretch a string along the fence line. Put the pickets up to the string, 6 inches on center, and fasten them with galvanized drywall screws if possible. When you're done, you'll have a fixed up fence looking something like this one. Some parts old, some parts new. So long.